Today, we're diving straight into one of the absolute most bizarre geopolitical anomalies on the map right now, and we're doing it by exploring the complete legal fiction that is Ercan International Airport. If you're a fan of geography, international law, or honestly just fascinated by the weird hidden loopholes that run our modern world, you are going to love this. We're looking at a place where physical reality and legal reality just completely contradict each other, and the craziest part, it all plays out right in the middle of a passenger terminal.
Picture this. You're standing in a bustling airport terminal. You've got your luggage, your boarding pass, and you look up at that giant digital flight board to check your gate. But instead of seeing a big, diverse list of global destinations like London, Paris, New York, Tokyo, you see something incredibly strange. The departures board at Ercan International Airport basically lists flights to Turkey, and, well, yep, even more Turkey. That is literally the entire international destination list. And the reason for this incredibly restricted itinerary is kind of mind-bending. You see, in the eyes of international law, Ercan Airport is technically illegal.
To borrow a really perfect phrase from our sources, Northern Cyprus is a place that, quote, acts like a country but isn't recognized by anyone. I mean, they've got their own administration, their own institutions, their own physical territory, but on the global stage, they're practically diplomatically invisible. The one single exception to this rule is Turkey, which our source actually playfully refers to as Big Daddy Turkey. Turkey is literally the only nation on Earth that officially recognizes Northern Cyprus as an independent state. And honestly, that one singular thread of recognition is what sets up the entire central paradox for this airport.
So how did we get here? Let's get into the history with our first section, the 8th grade dance.
As you might guess, a totally unrecognized breakaway airport doesn't just pop up overnight. It's a domino effect. This whole situation traces its roots way back to the British withdrawing from Cyprus in the 1900s. And when that colonial structure was removed, it opened the door to some serious long-term instability. We're not talking about a brief, minor period of unrest here. We're talking about decades of friction and violence that eventually culminated in a coup. That coup then became the catalyst for Turkey to invade the northern part of the island. Fast forward to today, and that military action left the island physically sliced right into, separated by a heavily monitored United Nations-run demilitarized zone. Now, the source material uses this fantastic, highly relatable metaphor to describe the UN-run DMZ. It basically sorted the population perfectly into what they call an 8th grade dance. Think back to middle school, right? You've got the boys standing awkwardly on one side of the gymnasium, the girls on the other side, in this vast, uncrossable expanse of wooden floor right in between them. You literally aren't allowed to cross the gym floor to dance with your crush. That's the actual reality on the ground in Cyprus. You have this hard physical barrier keeping two sides completely separated. But here's the big question. How does an 8th grade dance on the ground dictate where airplanes can fly?
Which brings us to our next section, the Sam Landia Rule.
Well, to understand the sky, we have to look at the rule book, and that brings us to the Chicago Convention. This is a super foundational rule of international aviation law, and it essentially says that every state has exclusive control over the airspace above its territory. It's absolute sovereignty of the sky. Now, here is exactly where the geopolitical math breaks down for Northern Cyprus, because the rest of the world, the UN, international courts, the whole global diplomatic community, considers Northern Cyprus to legally just be part of the Republic of Cyprus in the south. The Republic of Cyprus holds all the keys to the airspace. Therefore, the North has absolutely zero legal right to designate or operate an international airport.
It's exactly like this hypothetical scenario outlined in our sources. Imagine if I just walked into work tomorrow, locked my door, and officially declared my office the sovereign nation of Samlandia. I mean, I could drop a flag, I could print my own currency on the break room copy machine, and I could act like a country all day long. But I still wouldn't have the legal right to start sending commercial flights out of my office window to Cancun without the U.S. government's permission. To the FAA, my office is still just a room in the U.S., and to the international aviation community, Ercan is just an unapproved runway sitting in the Republic of Cyprus.
Okay, let's look at the real-world impact of this in our final section, the immigration oopsie. If you actually try to navigate this island, the ground rules shift entirely depending on exactly where your plane first touched down. From the perspective of the Republic of Cyprus, remember that's the internationally recognized government in the south, their airports are the only legal entry checkpoints. So if you land in the south, you're a tourist. Simple. But if you land in Northern Cyprus, you are landing in what the Republic of Cyprus legally classifies as occupied territory. They don't see it as a different country. They see it as their country, currently occupied, operating a rogue, illegal airport. And this creates a massive trap for the unwary traveler.
Just by following these 3 simple steps, you can totally inadvertently break international immigration law. Ready? Step 1. A tourist decides to book a cheap flight and flies into Ercan in the north. Step 2. They enjoy a few days there, then decide to rent a car or maybe take a bus and cross the UN border by land to visit the south. And Step 3. The moment they present their passport to authorities in the Republic of Cyprus, they are suddenly considered an illegal immigrant. Why? Because according to the South, that tourist just magically appeared inside their borders without ever passing through a legal entry checkpoint. As far as the law is concerned, they entered through the occupied territory.
Our source material describes this bizarre aviation logistics trap so perfectly. Legally speaking, to the Republic of Cyprus, taking that route is the closest thing to just parachuting onto an island without a passport. Your passport doesn't show a recognized entry stamp, so you basically just fell out of the sky. Now, quick caveat, the source does note that, thankfully, in practice, tourists are generally fine. The authorities know about this quirk, and they aren't going to throw you in prison for a simple vacation mix-up. But it remains this brilliantly messy example of how political instability doesn't just stay neatly tucked away in parliament buildings, it creates bizarre, tangled aviation logistics that govern the very planes we fly on. So, as we wrap up this explainer on how political instability bends the rules of the sky, I really want you to think about those invisible lines right above our heads. We look at maps all the time and we see these solid, defined borders on the ground, but the sky? The sky is governed by its own complex, fragile web of international agreements, recognitions, and legal fictions. I'm going to leave you to ponder this final thought. How many other borders out there are quietly defined by obscure aviation laws? What other hidden fragilities exist in international travel that we just completely sleep through on our way to baggage claim? It really does make you look at a simple departures board in a whole new light. Thanks so much for exploring this with me, and keep questioning the map.